Welcome back to my inner sanctum. I'm your hostess, Countess Elizabeth, mistress of the macabre. Boy, do we have a gruesome one for you this lovely evening. Today, we will explore the wartime story of when British forces were fighting Japanese forces in Myanmar, otherwise known as Burma. However, along with these tropical countries are famous for are their petulant fauna, which was not accounted for by the Japanese in this battle, as you will see. So let us get our rifles ready as we listen to the screams from the darkness, so we can explore our grotesque curiosity. During World War II, Ramree Island off the coast of Myanmar, then called Burma, was the site of a number of military battles, but the truly terrifying action only began after the military maneuvers ended. The early capture of the Akeb made the 26th Indian Infantry Division, Major General Henry Chambers, available for attack on Ramree Island, 110 kilometers, 70 miles to the south, the island being 80 kilometers, 50 miles long, and 32 kilometers, 20 miles wide, flat, an obvious site for an airfield. The plan was ready by January 2nd, when it was clear that the advance of the 14th Army, Lieutenant General William Slim, would soon pass beyond the range of its airbase at Impal and Agatarla. Replacements at Chittagong, Akab, and Ramree would be needed. On the 14th of January, the 26th Indian Division ordered to attack Ramree on the 21st of January. As a Royal Marine detachment from a 3-commando brigade occupied Chiduba Island, the Japanese garrison of Ramree consisted of the 2nd Battalion, 121st Infantry Regiment, Colonel Kenichi Nagasawa, part of the 54th Division, with artillery and engineer detachments to act on as an independent force. On January 26, 1945, British troops made their way to Ramree Island so that they could establish this new air base. However, they first had to drive off the Japanese invasion force, which had already claimed the island. After a bloody but successful campaign against the Japanese, the British soldiers managed to drive nearly 1,000 enemy combatants into the dense mangrove swamp that covered the 10 miles of Ramree. While this may have seemed a fine opportunity to slip into the wilderness and regroup, most Japanese soldiers would never be heard from again. Unfortunately for the fleeing men, the mangrove jungle on Ramree Island is home to an unknown number of the largest reptilian predator in the world, the saltwater crocodile. Imagine you're part of a military force outflanked by the enemy on a tropical island. You have to rendezvous with another group of soldiers on the other side of the island, but the only way to do so is to traverse thick swamp filled with deadly crocodiles. These prehistoric holdovers can grow over 20 feet in length and over 2,000 pounds in some cases. And although examples of the size are rare, even a mid-sized crocodile of the species could easily kill a full-grown adult human. In addition, saltwater crocs are far from a misunderstood monster. These crocodiles have a long history of attacking humans who wandered into their habitats, seeing them as little more than taller, awkward prey. So, when nearly 1,000 panicked soldiers came, dripped in blood and sweat into the cramped confines of the Ramree mangrove swamp, the giant lizards likely had the feast of their lives. Soon after entering the slimy mud hole, Japanese soldiers began to succumb to diseases, dehydration, and starvation. Mosquitoes, spiders, poisonous snakes, and scorpions hid in the thick forest and picked off some troops, one by one. About 500 Japanese soldiers are thought to have escaped those mangrove swamps, and 20 of them were eventually recaptured by British forces, who had set up a perimeter around the thick wilderness. However, there were only 500 or more of the escaping men who never left the swamp. The survivors are reported to have told of horrific stories of dozens of crocodiles attacking soldiers en masse and appearing seemingly out of nowhere to drag off some poor soul. The nights were said to have been filled with screams, gunfire, and the sounds of animal attacks. Crocodiles appeared when the Japanese got deeper into the swamp. Even worse, saltwater crocodiles are nocturnal and excel at taking its prey in the darkness. So these men were just in the darkness of this mangrove swamp, getting taken out one by one. The story of the Ramree Massacre was reported in a number of papers, but its tale is still largely apocryphal. However, this has not stopped the Guinness Book of World Records to name this incident as the most number of fatalities in a crocodile attack. A dubious distinction for a horrible event, no matter the real numbers. Several British soldiers said the crocodiles preyed on the Japanese soldiers in the swamp. The most prominent first-hand retelling of what happened comes from the naturalist Bruce Stanley Wright, who participated in the Battle of Ramree Island and gave this written account. That night, of February 19th, 1945, was the most horrible night that any member of the MI motor launch crews have ever experienced. The crocodiles, alerted by the din of warfare and the smell of blood, gathered among the mangroves, lying with their eyes above the water, watchfully alert for their next meal. With the ebb of the tide, the crocodiles moved in on the dead, wounded, and uninjured men who had become mired in the mud. The scattered rifle shots of the pitch-black swamp punctured the screams of the wounded men crushed by the jaws of the huge reptiles, and the blurred, worrying sound of spinning crocodiles made a cacophony of hell that rarely had been duplicated on Earth. At dawn, vultures arrived to clean up what the crocodiles had left. Of the 1,000 troops who had entered the swamp on Ramree Island, only reported 480 survived. However, death toll estimates vary. What the British do know for sure is that 20 men came out of the swamp alive and captured. These Japanese troops told the captors about the crocodiles, but exactly how many men died in the maws of the mighty crocs remains up for debate, because no one knows how many troops succumbed to the disease, dehydration, or starvation as opposed to predation. Well, that was truly a grotesque tale. All those poor people being eaten by the crocs. It must have been a devastating time to be fighting and think you found sanctuary in the woods, but instead you find crocodiles lurking in the cloudy depths. May the souls of those from the battle on both sides rest in peace. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe, like, and share if you would also like to keep exploring our grotesque curiosity. We'll meet again in the darkness of the night.